We've now officially hit January 15th, which means that Jonathan Kuminga can legally be traded. So we're going to take a look at some more Jonathan Kuminga trades and some Ja Morant trades as well, since he is the most likely superstar or star to be traded. So first, we'll look at some Ja Morant deals, and then it'll kind of go into the Kuminga conversation since there could be some potential overlap. So the first trade that I saw that was somewhat interesting to me is the Suns as a team for Ja Morant, pairing Ja Morant with Devin Booker. So this particular trade has Jalen Green and Nick Richards and a 2027 first round pick via Utah and a 2032 pick swap. So that is all going to the Grizzlies, and Ja Morant and a 2027 first rounder going to the Suns. So I take putting the first round assets aside, ignoring that side of it for a second, I think Ja Morant in Phoenix makes some sense. I think he kind of pairs decently with Devin Booker. He's just his athleticism and his ability to drive paired with Devin Booker's ability to spot up shoot, and just sort of the ability to stagger them throughout a regular season game offensively, where one person can be on the floor at pretty much at all times. It's a pretty good option, I think. So I think whether it's this trade or something else, I think Phoenix should be a legitimate contender for Ja Morant, especially because Jalen Green, he's the kind of player that maybe the Grizzlies would be interested in. He's young. He still has some untapped potential, and he's not really. I mean, he's been hurt and stuff this year, so he hasn't really been utilized that much by the Suns. It's not like he's, um, you know, had such a great start to his son's career, even the way that Dylan Brooks has had. So I don't think that the Suns are in love with Jalen Green. I think that they would be potentially interested in moving him. Um, at the end of the day, they have to move Ja Morant, whether it's at this trade deadline or in the offseason. Like he's getting in arguments and disagreements with players in practice. He's got really bad body language during games, and even though he's still playing pretty decently most of the time, he just seems like he wants out. It just seems like it's time. So this is not a bad first attempt. I think Phoenix makes a lot of sense. So here's the second one. This one is a little bit more of a bold attempt. So the Celtics would get Ja Morant. They trade Anthony Simons, who has had a pretty bad year with the Celtics, Sam Hauser, Xavier Tillman, a couple first rounders, all going the Grizzlies' way for Ja Morant. This is one of those trades where I would expect, if something like this were to actually happen, I would expect a third team to be involved, because why would the Grizzlies want Simons? Why would they want really any of those guys? If you're trading Ja Morant this year, you're interested in draft picks and young assets. So I would assume that they would flip Simons to a contender. He's a $27.6 million expiring deal. So you'd think another team would take that on as just a way to help them in a playoff push this year as a bench scorer and kind of a low risk option because he's an expiring and he'll be gone the next year. But the Ja Morant fit with the Celtics is a little curious to me. Obviously, in the offseason, they got rid of a lot of their assets, like Porzingis, Drew Holiday, Al Horford, because they were anticipating this season to be sort of a gap year while Tatum was getting healthy from his Achilles injury. Well, it turns out the East is not very good, as we all anticipated. And the Celtics are playing pretty damn well. Jaylen Brown is a fringe MVP candidate, and um, there's a chance that Tatum could come back late in the year or at some point in the playoffs. So they're playing really well. And Fernie Simons is not a huge part of why they're playing well. Although Sam Hauser, let's take a look at his numbers. He's averaging 7 points, 3.3 rebounds, 1.3 assists. So not like he's averaging a ton of points a game, but actually he's only shooting 32.9% from 3. I thought he was shooting a little bit better. So, yeah, I mean, it's not like you're giving up the key to your success this season. And Fernie Simons is averaging 14.5, 2.4 assists, 2.2 rebounds. So, shooting 40% from 3. I mean, he's, playing pretty well, I guess, better than I actually remembered him playing. But obviously, you get John Morant. I don't know if he fits with their system super well. I don't know really what system John Morant fits with, like 2025, 2026 version of John Morant fits with. And it just seems like it might be too messy to bring him into the Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, when healthy, experience in Boston. It just seems clunky to me, but an interesting option, definitely. Here's another one. Obviously, the teams that are more rumored to get John Morant or to have interest in John Morant are Miami, Houston, even the Kings. So here's a Rockets trade. Fred VanVleet, Reed Shepherd, Clint Capella, a couple of first rounders. One's top 10 protected. They get John Morant and Scottie Pippen. Obviously, Fred VanVleet is out for the year. You've got Kevin Durant, who's a 37 or whatever he is year old, 36-year-old, whatever. And you want to win now because there's no telling when he's going to have a drop off. So it makes sense to try and rid yourselves of Fred VanVleet since he can't contribute this year. Reed Shepherd's been playing pretty well. So I don't know if John Morant, I don't know if it makes sense to have him be part of a trade. But I also do think that, wow, he's shooting 47.8% from 3, but only 69 attempts on the year. I don't think that Reed Shepherd is necessarily a great playoff option for the Rockets because he'll just be picked on ruthlessly in pick and rolls defensively. He might be played off the floor in a playoff setting. Not that John Morant is such a great defender, and that same thing wouldn't happen to him, but his explosiveness on offense makes up for that. I don't know. I kind of think, though, the spacing of Reed Shepherd fits better than John Morant. Not crazy about this one. And it does fail. Oh, well, that doesn't matter. This fails, but it won't. It's an eligible trade 3 months after the Fred VanVleet extension, I guess. So here's a kind of a crazy trade, but I wanted to bring it up just to talk about it. So John Morant to Phoenix again, and Jonathan Kuminga going there as well. Kind of a fresh start for Phoenix, I guess you could say. But, this is the Phoenix saying, hey, we're overperforming compared to what we were expecting this year, but we know we're not going to win a championship with this team. So let's kind of reset. So what they would be giving up to get John Morant and Jonathan Kuminga is Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and a couple of draft picks, some draft capital. Dylan Brooks is having a hell of a year. He's averaging over 20. He's, he's averaging 18.3. He's good defensively. He's not someone that I would really want to give up, or he's someone that you could trade high, I suppose. And maybe actually, if there's a team that should do something like that, it would be Phoenix, because you're not going to win a championship. So why not trade someone like this when their value is at an all-time high? So Warriors get Dillon Brooks and Brandon Clark. Brandon Clark is a big man. I mean, he's only listed at 6'8" here, but he plays big, offensive rebounder type. Warriors could use more of that. The Grizzlies would be getting Jalen Green, Moses Moody, and 2027 first from the Warriors, which is relatively, actually, it's, I think, very highly coveted. The first rounder from the Suns via Utah, and a second and a pick swap. So, I mean, that's a crazy good return for just giving up Ja Morant and Brandon Clark. I don't think Ja Morant's value is that high. I don't think that all that draft capital needs to go Memphis's way. In fact, if I'm the Suns and I'm giving up Jalen Green and Dillon Brooks and a first rounder and a pick swap, I would expect to get a little bit more than Ja Morant and Jonathan Kuminga, especially just because Kuminga has no value right now. I mean, he's getting DNPs. I wouldn't say no value. He's still 23 years old, but he's just not the player that value-wise, he's not the player. He doesn't have the potential that I think was seen in him. Not as even like coming off of the playoffs last year, where he took over when Steph got hurt and he was averaging like 30 a game. Like since then, his value has gone down. So here's another one that has Ja Morant going to the Kings. Ja Morant and Buddy Hield to the Kings. Buddy Hield, I think, was drafted by the Kings or was traded to the Kings from the Pelicans. I don't remember if he was drafted by the Kings or the Pelicans, but Ja and Buddy to the Kings. Jaren Jackson and Keon Ellis. We know that the Warriors like Keon Ellis. We know that the Warriors need a shot-blocking big man who can shoot threes like Jaren Jackson. So they are getting pretty much – I can't think of a package of players that they would want more than Jaren Jackson and Keon Ellis. So what do they give up in order to get kind of their dream scenario? Buddy Hield, Jonathan Kuminga, Brandon Pajemski, Guy Santos, a Steve Kerr favorite, a 2026 first rounder, which is probably of all their draft picks, the one that they value the least amount, because you're assuming that with Steph Curry around and Draymond Green in 2026, you're still a playoff team, or at least a play-in team. It's not going to be like a top 5 pick, but the 2028 and the 2032 picks, that's where it's scary. They probably don't want to give up both of those. If you're giving up the 2028 and the 2032 and the 2026 and Brandon Pajemski and Kuminga and Buddy Hield, I think it's not a bad return. Jaren Jackson is really good. Keon Ellis is a really underrated player. But I think for that much draft capital and Pajemski and Kuminga, they probably aren't doing all of that for just Jaren Jackson. I think that's more of a package for Giannis, in my opinion. Maybe for Giannis, you need to throw in another future first. But I guess what I'm saying is that why waste most of the bullets in the chamber for Jaren Jackson and Keon Ellis when Giannis could be available this summer? It just feels a little premature to be doing all that if you're not getting an absolute star that's going to put you into, like, catapult you into, like, finals contention. And I don't think a Warriors roster with Steph and Jimmy Butler, Draymond, and Jaren Jackson is a finals contender. I don't think that puts them on the level of OKC and Denver. I think it puts them more in the tier of Houston, Minnesota, I guess, maybe a little bit above the Lakers. So I don't think that the Warriors necessarily do that. I think the Kings, trying to predict what the Kings will do is absolutely impossible because what the hell are they doing? I mean, they're getting Sabonis back soon, which is good, but they've got Russell Westbrook, they got Dennis Schroeder, they've got Zach LaVine, they've got DeRozan, they've got Malik Monk, like all of their play. It's just such a random mix of players. And so you add John Morant to that. Yeah, you get rid of DeRozan, you get rid of Malik Monk, but you've got now John Morant, Russell Westbrook, and Dennis Schroeder and Zach LaVine. Those are like 4 of your top 7 players are all basically point guards that want the ball. So anyways, in this scenario, the Grizzlies, this makes almost no sense for them. They're getting DeRozan. They get Kuminga, which makes some sense. They're getting Malik Monk, which maybe is a trade asset they can flip later. But it's a not cheap contract. They get Pajemski. They get a bunch of first rounders. I mean, really, you're going to get rid of John Morant and Jaren Jackson. You better get a lot of first-round picks, and this gives you a lot of first-round picks, and they're first-round picks from teams that could be bottom feeders in the West soon. So, actually, not that crazy. But I'm just not sure Kings and, why would the Kings part with a 2026 and 2028 first-rounder? Because they're not anywhere near being a title contender or even a playoff team. So that's just, you're not giving up that kind of first round value for just John Morant. I don't think. I mean, maybe they just are thinking that they need to throw a Hail Mary and just see what happens. So moving into more of the Kuminga deals, this is just sort of a not super sexy deal, but something that I could see happening. Just getting rid of Kuminga to a team that has reported interest in him, and what you're getting back is simply a center that is of use to you. Right now, they're starting Quentin Post. They're doing that thing where they start him and he plays 12 minutes, but he'll play 15 or 20 minutes if he's hitting his 3. He's improved defensively, Quentin Post has, but he's still not, somebody to rely on. So I think Kuminga in Dallas makes sense. I think Gafford in Golden State makes sense. This adds the Wizards as a trade partner, giving the Wizards Caleb Martin and a second rounder from the Warriors just to package it all together. And the reason for doing that is to make the money work for Kuminga, because Daniel Gafford is making $8 million and change less than Kuminga, so they have to offload a little bit more salary to make the money work. So not the sexiest deal, but something that I could see legitimately happening. This is a more outlandish one. It goes back to the Jaren Jackson, because Jaren Jackson is a good fit, at least on paper, for the Warriors. He and Gigi Jackson would be going to the Warriors. That's $37 million in salary or so. And to the Grizzlies would be Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, Buddy Hield, and their 2027 first. So if you're the Grizzlies here, you're probably also trading John Morant elsewhere. And in this deal, you're just completely committing to the rebuild. In this deal, you're getting Moody and Kuminga, who you might be able to flip later, or you might be able to just kind of develop and have as your young, as part of your young core with some of your other Jalen Wells and Coward. So you get Buddy Hield as well, someone you could maybe flip, and one first rounder. So to me, the question is, do the Grizzlies part with Jaren Jackson for just Kuminga, Moody, and a first, or do they ask for more first round picks and then the Warriors say, no, we're out? That would be the holdup that I would guess be part of the negotiation. But yeah, I mean, if you're the Warriors and you're looking at 37-year-old Steph Curry playing really well still. Jimmy Butler, 36, playing really well. Jaren Jackson's ability to shoot threes next to Draymond and both of them defensively together, like it could be a really good fit. There's been rumors about the Warriors' interest in Miles Turner for years, even Brooke Lopez. Jaren Jackson is a better option than both of them, but has similar skill sets. A shot blocking center with size who can shoot threes, and can start next to Draymond. So I think that's an interesting trade. This one doesn't fit the Warriors as well because the main player coming back is not a center. But this one, the Hornets are taking a flyer on a younger guy. They're swapping Miles Bridges for Jonathan Kuminga. Buddy Hield to make the salary match. For the Warriors, they do get a center in Mason Plumlee, but he's a center who effectively, like, are you playing Mason Plumlee over Trace Jackson Davis or Quentin Post? I don't know if you would. Maybe he has his nights. In this situation, yeah, you're getting Miles Bridges, who's a 20-point per game scorer. I think he would pair decently on the Warriors next. I mean, he's a little bit more of a chucker than the Warriors and Steve Kerr tend to like, but better shooter than Kuminga, around the same size as Kuminga. I feel like he could play next to Jimmy Butler pretty well. I feel like he would really it wouldn't improve their starting lineup as much as I think it would improve those minutes with Steph Curry off the floor where you've got Jimmy Butler running the show and just throwing Miles Bridges there, like that extra kick on offense that they need during those minutes, I think is where that would be the best benefit. I don't, in this trade, whoever made this trade, they put a 2028 first-round pick from Charlotte in addition, and I think that's pretty clearly not something that the Hornets would do. Like, if you're the Hornets, you aren't getting rid of any first-round picks, period. End of story. So that's not going to happen. But honestly, if you take out that and it's just Kuminga and Buddy Hield for Miles Bridges and Mason Plumlee, why the hell would the Warriors not do that? You're replacing, like, at this point, Kuminga doesn't play. Buddy Hield also doesn't play, by the way. And Miles Bridges would come in and, at the very least, fall to like a bench scorer for the Warriors. That is someone that is more talented off the bench than really anyone that they have. So I think that's a decent. That could be a decent fit if you take out that first rounder. This one I thought was interesting as well, and maybe more. There's one big issue with this trade, but what's more realistic with Kuminga's value, and a trade partner that maybe is more realistic too. There's been no reported interest from the Trailblazers in Jonathan Kuminga, but I'm just going to read what the trade is first and then say what my issue is. So the Warriors would be getting Robert Williams III, 6'9" center with knee problems on a 1-year expiring deal, and Matisse Thybulle, one of the better reputations for on-ball defender as a 6'5" shooting guard in the league. The Warriors would be giving up Kuminga, DeAnthony Melton, Keith Santos, and a second rounder. The reason why I think that this trade has no chance of happening as is because the Warriors love DeAnthony Melton. I actually think as he's been getting healthier, he is a very likely candidate to be the starting shooting guard for the rest of the year for the Warriors, in my opinion. Podziemski's kind of fallen into a bench role. Buddy Hield is completely benched. Melton is playing better and better and better, and he offers like a little bit more of an ability to finish around the rim, especially compared to Podziemski, who's struggled with that. And he is kind of a two-way player that can also knock down threes. So I don't see the Warriors getting rid of Melton, but I do see a trade involving Kuminga where you get back Robert Williams and even Matisse Thybulle. I see that making a lot of sense, actually. So maybe it's Kuminga and Pajemski for Robert Williams and Matisse Thybulle. Maybe it's Kuminga and Gary Payton, since Gary Payton and Matisse Thybulle are a little bit redundant. But I do think there is something there, a framework of something there. I don't know if the Blazers are interested enough in Kuminga to do that, but Robert Williams is not necessary for the Blazers, so it would make sense for them to part with him because they have Klingon, who has showed a lot of promise and is even starting to knock down threes now, and then the 7'2" rookie from China. What's his name? Yang. I forget his name, but Jan Henson or something like that. But yeah, so they've kind of got centers that they're more interested in playing than Robert Williams, and Robert Williams is older, and he just doesn't make a ton of sense on the Blazers team. So I could see that being a pairing. The one thing I will say is that at 6'9", the Warriors really should be looking for more traditional 7-footers because they need to compete with the size in the West, and they need to compete with how big the Nuggets are and the Rockets with their offensive rebounding, the Thunder with Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren. They need size. It's not just athletic 6'9" guys, because that's what Trace Jackson Davis is. He wasn't athletic, but that's what Kevon Looney was, as like a 6'9" center that had the ability to rebound pretty well, especially on offensive rebounds. But I think you just need a 7-footer. Like Robert Williams is not going to stand a chance against Steven Adams or Jokic, etc. So that's the only issue I see with that trade. And then everybody wants the Warriors to trade for Michael Porter Jr. I built a trade last time I did one of these Kuminga videos that was centered around Noah Clowney and Nick Claxton, because I think getting both of them is something that the Warriors should be trying to do, because they just need an influx of athleticism and size. But a lot of people really like the Michael Porter Jr. fit because of his shooting and scoring ability, and his size. I mean, he's 6'10". He's would immediately be one of the tallest players on the Warriors roster. So it's certainly possible. There's a lot of reporting that says that the Nets or the Warriors are not interested in Michael Porter Jr., at least not on the level of what it would cost for them to get him. But in this trade, you get Michael Porter, Jalen Wilson, Tyrese Martin. The Kings get Jonathan Kuminga. At least that side of it, Kuminga is definitely liked by the Kings organization. They have interest in him. And then, yeah, the holdup all along with Kuminga for Malik Monk was that the Warriors didn't like Malik Monk in their system. He's just another 6'3", 6'2" guard, and they just have a million of those, and they need size. So in this trade, yeah, this is a way for Kuminga to go to the Kings without the Warriors getting stuck with Malik Monk. So then Malik Monk goes to the Nets. They don't really, I don't think that they care too much about that. Moses Moody, maybe they care a little bit about that as a young asset. Buddy Hield, they don't care. What they're really after is draft picks for Michael Porter Jr. So I think if you're the Nets, Michael Porter Jr. has a little bit of a shady injury history, and his value is probably at a peak right now. I don't see his value getting better for the rest of his career because he's kind of a fringe all-star, what he's put together in the first half, and that back could give out at any point. So if you don't, as a team who is not going to win or contend seriously for a championship anytime remotely soon, you've got an asset that, since you've traded for it, has gone up significantly. So why would you not trade it immediately? Trade it. I think they don't have to trade it if they don't have a deal that they like, but I think they absolutely should be aggressive in trying to capitalize on his sky high value right now. So Malik Monk, Moses Moody, Buddy Hield, the 2026 first rounder from the Warriors, which I'm sure they are, like I said earlier, that's the one that they probably care about the least amount. And the 2028 first rounder, which, by the way, if the Warriors are giving up 2 first round picks, those are the 2 that they would want to give. I mean, 2026 still has Steph on the team. 2028 might not. Probably doesn't. If it does, he's probably like averaging 23 minutes a game. But yeah, I mean, the Warriors in 2028, that's probably an asset that is a top 10 pick. I mean, there's an outside chance that it's like the last good season of Steph, Draymond, Jimmy, I guess Michael Porter Jr. if he signs an extension and his back isn't broken by then. It could be a lottery, like a late lottery pick. I mean, if you're the Warriors, you're looking at that and you're saying, hey, there's at least a chance that 2028 first round pick is not that valuable. But I guess the question is, are the Warriors really getting rid of 2 first rounders plus Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga just for a player that is not like the same issue? Is Michael Porter Jr. going to catapult the Warriors into contention this year? No, but it also it's a it's an ability to contend a little more seriously in Steph Curry's last years, and Jimmy Butler's too. Like, why trade for Jimmy Butler if it's kind of like the Lakers and LeBron over the last few years? Like, the Lakers never wanted to trade their first rounders. Even though from LeBron, you have LeBron James, from his perspective, every year you should be maximizing his chances of contending. So from his perspective, it's really frustrating that the Lakers wouldn't trade those picks. But from the Lakers' perspective, they got to think about their future outside of LeBron, and the Warriors have to start doing that because the end is near for their fading dynasty, as Steve Kerr calls it. So it is a little scary to give up future firsts. And also, what if Giannis becomes available in the summer? What if Giannis is available in the summer and the Warriors have given up the 2026 and 2028 first round pick? They not only have they given up 2 picks, but it means that they can't trade their 2029 or their 2027 first round picks. So they would have to trade a 2032 and maybe a 2030. I don't know for sure if they have rights to the 2030 pick, but that's not enough assets. And you've traded, Moody and Kuminga, who were 2 potentially attractive young players to pair with the first rounders. So you really have no shot anymore at getting Giannis if you request a trade in the summer if you do this deal. So that's the main problem with it. But anyways, those are all the trades that I looked at on Fanspo earlier today that I thought were of varying levels of interest. If I were to predict what I think is most likely, I don't think John Morant goes to the Celtics. I don't think he goes to the Rockets either. I could kind of see John Morant going to the Suns. For some reason, that just makes sense to me. I just don't think Jalen Green is like an asset that the Suns are care about protecting. And maybe the Grizzlies would be interested in him if they're also getting first-round picks, because John Morant is sort of becoming a sunk cost at this point. So I think John Morant in Phoenix is a legit option, and I think for Kuminga, the most likely deal is just Daniel Gafford or Nick Claxton and change from the Nets. I think don't trade a bunch of first-round picks. Don't even necessarily trade Moses Moody or Brandon Pajemski. Save some of your younger guys that you've been developing for years. Get off of Kuminga, who desperately wants out, and yeah, you get yourself a center finally, to hold down the middle a little bit. So those are the trades that I think are most likely in the John Morant and Jonathan Kuminga saga, which will go on for maybe the next month. So we'll have to see what happens, but yeah,